Welcome back to the Taylor Moore Show. I know there was a lot of talk last year about grocery prices are too high, gas is getting too expensive, the housing market is becoming unaffordable. And that all may have been well and true up until January of 2026, when former New York City Mayor Eric Adams released a cryptocurrency called the New York City token. And the New York City token, I I feel good about this. It's just a little bit about it. It was a meme coin, and it was pitched as a way to fund social causes like fighting anti-Semitism and anti-Americanism. Like to define that, please. Within hours of its launch, the token's market cap reportedly spiked towards 600 million before plummeting over 80%. And listen, you you know, fingers might be pointing and saying this was a rug pull, but Mayor Eric Adams, and in general, New York City mayors are all guys of integrity. So, yeah, the coin's experienced a little bit of turbulence, but as far as this security here being something that could really put America back on track, I'm feeling good about it. Well, again, welcome to the Taylor Moore Show. Yeah, that was just some news that I heard of that got me excited. I hope it gets you guys excited too. Speaking of New York City, I actually was in New York City over the weekend. I went there to visit my brothers. It was great. A little cold, but great. It reminded me why, though, New York City for me is a great place to visit, not a great place to live. It's incredibly overstimulating, really fun to visit. When I lived there, I never enjoyed the feeling of like everything is always go, go, go and in motion, and it was hard to find refuge from that. Uh, a highlight from the weekend, though, by far, was we went to this Chinese restaurant in Chinatown called the Golden Calf. I think it was called the Golden Calf. And we sit down there for lunch hour. This restaurant is like multiple stories tall. It's definitely run by the New York Triad, Chinese triads. Uh, Clearly repurposed as gambling parlors at night. Again, this is all allegedly. But so you take this elevator up. By the way, there's like a team of 40 hosts and hostesses just to facilitate you up the elevators. You're handed a ticket like you're at a deli counter. And so you're whisked upstairs, seated at a table. And for a moment there, you're like, where is the waiter or waitress? Until you start looking around and seeing that the way they do lunch service there is they have all these little old Chinese women moving these carts around the floor of the restaurant, each with their own designated menu item that it is then their job to basically huck. So they are menu huckers. And you have one person hucking soup dumplings, another person hucking shrimp shumai, another person hucking little bao buns that look like pigs. Clearly, this in terms of seniority, it's a lot like a ballpark. Hot dogs go to the most senior hucksters. I would think that you know what, I was going to say it was probably the pig pork bun, bao buns that go to the most senior huckster, but it was actually, there was one cart amongst the flurry of carts that was a rolling hibachi grill. And there were hot dumplings being cooked on there. And you could order dumplings and she'd plop them off the griddle top there and put them right on your plate. But I think every restaurant in America should actually be like this. I'll tell you why. In an age of declining restaurant service, what is going to guarantee that diners are met with attentiveness, that food is fresh, that there's no waiting around being hungry, that you can actually see your food before you get it, so you know exactly what you're getting? This is the model that works. And it was clear that these little fragile Chinese women were being paid on a commission basis because my brothers and I went there, they all grabbed a beer. I think I just had a water. But so we ordered like a couple dumplings, but we were really just there to stop in for a refreshment. And you'd have like after like the fifth person came by on their cart and we were like refusing, this woman had this little bamboo plate of soup dumplings that, I mean, she was not taking no for an answer. She just kept putting it down on the table. I was like, I don't really want this. All right, take it back, but then put it down in front of someone else. So it's clearly commission based. And I think that is what is missing in food service is food service workers being inspired to hustle a little bit. When everything's a commission, everything becomes a sale. Everything becomes a sales opportunity. You dropped your wallet? Here, let me get that for you. Also, in addition to the wallet I'm going to give you back, can I interest you in a plate of 45 pork buns? I don't know. It gave me a lot to think about. So that was pretty exciting. And yeah, the women in New York City are gorgeous too. Are they gorgeous, but can they ride a pair of Heelys? That's my litmus test. In some other news, so we have a lot on the plate for today. Again, I'm still trying out some new formats. I think we sort of have it, though. We caught our stride with the last episode. Just covering some current events, maybe a little bit of metaphysics, maybe a little bit of geopolitics. Whatever seems to be tickling my peach today. There is one thing I wanted to talk about, though, and that is that Dubai has just unveiled, ready? Are you seated? Dubai has just unveiled Mercedes-Benz Places, Benghazi City, as they call it, a massive $8 billion city within a city that serves as the world's first residential district entirely branded by the luxury automaker. Located in the Maidan district, like the article says Maidan district as if I know where the fuck that is. Like we know Dubai, I don't know. I think for all of the fun toys and stuff they have there, like let's just slow it down a little. No one hears Maidan district and they're like, oh wow, they decided to do something with that place. Oh, the Maidan district? Oh, that place had gone untouched for years. Nice to hear they're breathing some new life into the Maidan district. This 10 million square foot development features 12 architecturally synchronized towers, each named after an iconic Mercedes-Benz concept car. The skyline is anchored by the 341-meter Vision Iconic Tower, showcasing a design language of sensual purity. All right, I've actually heard enough. Sensual purity? There's it anchored by showcasing a design language of sensual purity. That may be the design language, but the way it was built is anything but evoking sensual purity. I'm pretty sure they have slaves from like Oman and Morocco and India and Sri Lanka building this stuff. They just rip away their passports and they're like, hey, turn in your passports. You're going to go spend the next 6 months, 20 hours a day, building the Vision Iconic Tower that is there to evoke sensual purity. Okay? Figure it out. I swear, though, with all these like, you hear the design of the city. I have to believe that the architect or visionaries are just doing a shitload of ketamine. Like, to just be like, okay, we're gonna build a Mercedes-Benz city in the desert. It's all gonna be about sensual purity, wellness centers. Every tower is gonna be named after one of the concept Mercedes-Benz cars. And don't even get me started on the type of people that would want to live in a place like this. Unbearable. I already think it's a little gaudy if, like, you're on the street decked out in designer brand clothing. I think we all know that, where we can all, if you don't, you should probably look into that because other people are thinking about that about you, if that's you. But to live in the Mercedes-Benz Tower takes that to a whole new level of just like opulence, consumerism. It's not even that opulent, actually. It's just gaudy. Drink break. Quick aside, today's my day off and I decided to venture out. I'm eating really well during the week, like during my 5-day work week. And on the weekends, I will treat myself to either like a, ice cream or dessert one night and maybe a night I'll treat myself to a little indulgence, like a meal out. And so today I was like, I'm pretty close to a Taco Bell, and I was like, gosh, I probably haven't. The last time I had Taco Bell is when I was doing 20 Xanax bars a day and not looking after myself very well. So I was like, let's go correct the historical record on this. Let's go heal my relationship with Taco Bell. And so I went there, and I got a Mountain Dew. This is a big Mountain Dew. It's 75% zero sugar Mountain Dew with a little splash of the real stuff, not the forgery, the zero sugar forgery. And I was like, I will get one of those Crunchwrap Supremes, like the taco inside the tortilla. And the drink is pretty good. I'm not even kidding. I took one bite of that taco, and it was done the same way I had it, during my darkest hour, and I could not finish it. Immediately, my stomach I could tell it was going to go into revolt, and so I was like, if I don't want to be on the Weather Channel with a Category 5 something, then I better put this down and throw this away. So that's what I did. But I'm drinking the just regular Mountain Dew Zero mix. I really shouldn't be giving Taco Bell a free ad spot, but hey, if they want to work with me, then I'll remove this episode, or at least splice out the clip where I talk shit about Taco Bell, and I will sell myself out. So yeah, this Mercedes-Benz City, and this got me thinking, folks. This got me thinking. Okay, we hear all about these concept cities and stuff like that, and I'm really against them. I don't like the idea, the Disney condos, the Mercedes-Benz city. It's all a little bit too much. Now, that said, I decided to analyze that. I decided to ask myself, why is it that I don't like these? Well, that's very simple. It's because a brand like Marlboro hasn't done a city, because that would have my full support. So I spent yesterday evening architecting my vision for Marlboro City, and I hope you guys enjoy. So this is sort of the hook, if there's like a commercial or something like that. Well, Dubai builds a city that looks like a luxury car showroom you're afraid to touch. Marlboro City is built for the man who isn't afraid to get dirt under his fingernails or ash on his boots. It's the only city in the world where the rules-based order is replaced by the code of the West. So, yeah, that's fucking awesome. And here's a little bit of design about the city. So a place like Mercedes-Benz City has wellness centers. It's where you can go to a spa, get some red light therapy, be coddled, essentially. Marlboro City, instead of these wellness zones, it's going to have decisiveness centers. And there was a Marlboro campaign a while back called a Don't Be a Maybe. That was their whole thing, don't be a maybe. It was all about decisiveness. So this would be drawing inspiration from that. And these are spots where you don't meditate, but you make high stakes life decisions over a stiff drink and like a Marlboro Red, a cowboy killer. No bullshit, in and out. Am I going to divorce my wife? Are we getting an abortion? We don't need, we don't have to go and relax for the weekend to think about this. We are going to the Decisiveness Center to smoke about 100 cigarettes and make our minds up. Obviously, everything would be smoker friendly in Marlboro City. In a world of restrictive laws, Marlboro City would be sort of a sanctuary. Indoor lighting would be permanently set to golden hour. And every balcony, this is important, would come with a heavy-duty, windproof ash receptacle. Very industrial. I'd also like to include in my designs for Marlboro City the aromasphere. So it's like aromatic flavoring that's pumped into the air, either cool menthol or rustic tobacco. In terms of education for the kids who live there, It would obviously be called the School of Hard Knocks. And there wouldn't really be the normal like GED curriculum. Courses would include advanced asset seizure, the ethics of the handshake, navigating the unregulated frontier. Kids would get their forklift license before they got their actual vehicle driver's license. And instead of playgrounds, the kids would be given these miniature masonry kits, and they'd go and spend their break from class going to repair the red brick facade around the city. In terms of the medical district, it would have to be the most advanced but least regulated on Earth. It would, of course, be the world leader in black market lung smuggling and transplants. And then we'd go against the grain of this trend we're seeing in plastic surgery where everything's supposed to look tighter. And instead, you could go and get treatment for distinguished character lines where we could actually modify your face to have those deep, leathery pockets of skin lines along your face to just give you that weathered look. Because looking young and smooth in Marlboro City is a sign of weakness. And then finally, for the justice system, it would not be sort of the Western Enlightenment style of justice. This is the frontier, after all. There would be no long-winded court cases here. We just don't have the time. Instead, what would happen is disputes would be settled in Canyon Court. And both parties would stand on a high-rise balcony, and they each strike a match. And you hold the match up in the gusting wind, and whoever's match stays lit the longest wins the dispute or is put to death because they have the favor of the frontier. Yeah, I mean, that's Marlboro City. And so if that's something you're interested in, leave a comment, like, subscribe, share, get this in front of Philip Morris executives. Because I think particularly in a world of social media, something bold like this could really take. In closing, this is a little bit, I also picture being in the commercial to end it. In Dubai, they'll fine you for spitting on the sidewalk. In Marlboro City, they'll give you a medal for it, as long as you can hit the brass spittoon from 10 paces. It's a city that doesn't just ignore the rules-based order. It uses the rule book as kindling for the communal fire. Whew. Unreal. And of course, cigarettes are a big part of that. I think the name Marlboro City may have given that away. Anyways, Marlboro City. The other thing I wanted to talk about, the last podcast got some pretty good engagement. I've been looking into ways to maybe get that up. And there's one phenomena out there, which is that Indian guys are creating OnlyFans accounts where they are using AI, grafting the face of someone with Down syndrome onto their faces. And they're getting a lot more donations that way. Just something I've written down. Maybe I look into some of that deep fake Down syndrome technology and graft that onto my face. I think it could be pretty good. Okay. On to some updates from the world. Iran, Venezuela, Greenland. So we're going to take Greenland. I think like the king of Greenland was photographed leaving the White House the other day looking pretty disappointed, understandably, because you have a country with a much bigger military being like, yeah, well, this is ours now. So expect that. I think Venezuela, haven't heard much more news from that. We're still administrating the country. Iran, I think Iran is one to keep our eyes on. I know it's been confirmed that Mossad and the Israelis are there. I'm sure the CIA is too. Iran is also killing a lot of its people. Two things can be true at once. You can have a natural uprising, but you can also, and this is the sort of scary, dangerous thing, you can have those natural movements to uprise, like we talked about last week. Age of Aquarius. It's an astrological age characterized by revolutionary spirit and enlightenment. So we're going to be seeing this around a lot. Minneapolis. The problem is when those movements are co-opted. And when those movements are co-opted, they can be steered. And the outcomes can be controlled by groups who weren't even really party to the primary dispute. And the outcome can be achieved that might most benefit those groups. I don't want to spend too much time talking about all this geopolitical stuff, but I think, important to remember is if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. That's like an immutable law of the universe. If you live screwing people over, you're going to get screwed over. If you got your girlfriend by cheating, then that girl is going to cheat on you, and vice versa. I don't know why these things happen, but they do, and that's a saying for a reason. And I know we talked a couple episodes back about the parallels between the Roman Empire and all this stuff we're seeing with the U.S. Empire. The problem is, again, it gets into like you need to feed the beast. It's almost like a Ponzi scheme. You have to continue to rape and pillage all these different pockets of natural resources, land, fertile soil, all in the interest of sustaining the furnace of the empire. And, I just hope you live by the sword, die by the sword, that whoever conquers us one day will be kind and we'll build a Marlboro City. We'll have a Marlboro City in every state of the Union. Then I'd be fine. Take us now, if that's the case. Some other news. Hotel on the moon. Get this. Silicon Valley startup Grew Space, galactic resource utilization, of course, space, is taking deposits for a future lunar hotel with reservations starting around $250,000 to $1 million. Though some reports mention a $150,000 deposit for earlier suborbital space flights, not necessarily a full moon hotel. Clearly, this is turning into the episode of just lofty real estate visions. It's weird because we're talking about building a hotel on the moon when we've never actually been there. Leave it to Americans, folks. This, speaking of us never having been there, though, this may not actually be the case for long because we are evidently going back. We're going back to the moon, folks. Oh, you didn't hear about this? Let me tell you. Well, NASA is going back to the moon. I actually printed out the news article here. From The Guardian, NASA readies its most powerful rocket for round-the-moon flight. The Artemis 2 mission could launch on the 6th of February, sending astronauts on a 685,000-mile journey. That just sounds like a made-up number, probably because it is. NASA is preparing to roll out its most powerful rocket yet before a mission to send astronauts around the moon and back again for the first time in more than 50 years. I'm not going to belabor the point about the first moon landing too hard. Like, it's kind of a pretty saturated thing at this point. But just a couple quick facts. Nixon evidently made a landline phone call to the moon. Please explain that. The little capsule they came back in is one-to-one identical with the Airstream model of the day. So it was just an Airstream. Like the photos, the press photos. We lost the technology to go to the moon. We overwrote the telemetry tapes. And NASA means to deceive in Hebrew. Look that up. Anyways, we're going back. So that's great. The flight will mark only the second test of NASA's Space Launch System rocket and the first with the crew on board. Wow. They'll be testing life support and communication systems, guys, and practicing docking maneuvers. Jared Isaacman, the billionaire private astronaut, sworn in. That right there, billionaire private astronaut. Okay, as NASA's administrator in December said on Thursday, the mission was probably one of the most important human spaceflight missions in the last half century. I'll just read some of these quotes because these are good. These are the kinds of days that we live for, John Honeycutt, the chair of Artemis 2 mission management team, told a press briefing on Friday. It really doesn't get much better than this. We're making history. Thanks, John. Let's see, David Parker, the former head of UK Space Agency and a visiting professor at the University of Southampton, said, "It's a big deal. It is a step towards what we in the space world always dreamed of, to actually go to the moon." He didn't say that, but that's basically what he meant. And then, of course, they invoke, like in the similar way that they did against the Soviets, they're invoking China this time. I'll be damned if the Chinese beat NASA or beat America back to the moon, Sean Duffy, NASA's former acting administrator, said in September. We're going to win. Honestly, with how good AI video has gotten, I could probably join the fucking moon race. I should. Taylor Morris out of New Haven, Connecticut, the first to land on the moon in 50 years, beating out China and the United States of America. How'd you do it? Well, I said to myself, I'll be damned if the US or China beat me to the moon. And so I just told myself, I'm going to win. I'm going to make history. Yeah, I don't know. You know, this is, listen, if it inspires a new generation of scientists and engineers, that's all well and dandy. But you ever see those videos of like Buzz Aldrin when he's being interviewed all these years later? And a person in the audience will be like, hey, Buzz, like, what was the craziest thing about being, going to the moon? And he's got those beady trench warfare eyes, and he just looks at the camera and he goes, we never went. It would have been scary if we went, but we never went. Weird. He's done that a couple times. And here's what I think happened is, and I think I don't know if I've done an episode on MK Ultra and mind control. Yeah, don't roll your eyes too hard. I'm not like, oh, it's a thing everywhere. Everyone's getting mind control. But that was a real program, very well documented. People can be hypnotized. That's pretty well documented too. There was that guy on that TV show that got hypnotized and told by the hypnotist on stage to like take out a gun and aim it at the host. And he did. I think maybe it was with that black dude with the mustache, the guy that does Family Feud or something. I don't know. Anyways, I think these astronauts are like true Boy Scouts, and they just get hypnotized by the CIA. And they're told, like, yeah, you went to the moon. If anyone asks, it was cold. You were horny. That was the hardest. Like, if I was hypnotizing these astronauts, I'd be like, when you return down to Earth, start talking and don't stop about how horny you were the whole trip. How hungry, horny, angry, and tired you were. Anyways, yeah, I think they're hypnotized. So I think they, in some way or form, do believe that they've actually been, but they haven't been. And that's actually one that spiritually and just facts-wise, I'll die on that hill. I'll die on that hill. Sure, I'll die on that hill. The most exciting part about this trip, though, dudes and dudettes, is, so I'll read the little beginning here. It will be the second time in space for 3 NASA astronauts, Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, and Christina Koch, and the first for Jeremy Hansen, a Canadian astronaut. Koch will become the first woman, and Glover, the first person of color, to travel beyond low Earth orbit, the Van Allen radiation belt, the thing that is impermeable. We can't get there. But anyways, first black person, first woman. And I think that's great, NASA, but why stop there? Why stop there? Well, I want to see the first, this flight should have been included the first trans and little person to go to the moon. anything's possible. In the world of CGI in which they live in, you could send the first Cyclops to the moon and make it for 2026. Why are we stopping at first person of color and first woman? More intersectional, NASA. Do better. How about first black Asian midget who is also trans but now detransitioning? Huh? That'd be a headline. Maybe more people would get into space travel if you had some headlines that really grabbed attention like that. First quadriplegic or quadruple amputee. Okay, first trans but detransing quadruple amputee who identifies as black, and first Republican Christian turned transgender who's also a midget and has OCD, so they only, like, whenever they turn a corner, they always have to turn left. So they have to do like an outside turn when they're making a right turn. Something like that. Anyways, NASA, do a little better. Please do a little better. All right. I'm also changing gears a little bit. I was going to talk about the fact that I'm in the market for a used car, and I'll get there in a second. But I want to talk about one thing that's been irking me a little bit lately. Is sometimes I'll be scrolling social media, and I'll see like a mom feeding her kids chicken nuggets and 2 powdered donuts for breakfast. And of course, the comments are going buck wild. And you'll see some comments that are like, all I see are happy babies. Keep it up, mama. All I see are some happy young ones. You keep it up, mama. Claps for mama. No. I'm sorry. No, we're not clapping for that. And before you come at me for attacking moms, it's cheaper to cook rice and chicken. A. It's none of this goy slop. B. And C. The same people who will fairly defend a mother when you're just like, that's probably not the best thing to be feeding your kid, are the first to go after, a boyfriend who like takes his girlfriend out on a 5-day vacation to Turks and Caicos, always picks her up and drops her off from the dates, and they're like, do better. He's got to do better. Meanwhile, like as soon as they finish typing out that comment, do better, they just give a little holler to the kids with autism and ADD running around their living room as the microwave dings, and they're like, hey, dinner's ready. Go grab your dino nuggets. It is not bad to hold other people to a standard. It really isn't. Because if all that matters is children being fed, it doesn't matter what they're being fed, well, then you just have a pet. That's what you have. You're raising 5 pets. So I'm going to start asking, can I pet your son? Does your son do any tricks? Or like going up to him with a little ball, can I play fetch with your son? Does your son want a belly rub? Oh, that's not appropriate? Well, it's not appropriate to be feeding your kids fruit roll-ups and Lunchables every day. Sorry. I'm actually not sorry. And these same moms will be in Facebook moms groups and be like, yeah, Jimmy's got a little autism. Well, the doctors think it's autism. And like, do you think it might have to do that little Jimmy is consuming 200 grams of sugar every morning? And Red 40? Like, if the only thing is like, oh, he's just a picky eater. That's what's going on. Let's address that, and then we can have the autism discussion. Unless it's too late. Anyways. I talked about my last meal. Last episode, how I think a great last meal would be Pop Rocks. Still think that's true, but I'm going to make this a thing. I want to introduce a new last meal for this podcast episode. Coke and Mentos. Your last meal is Coke and Mentos. I do not have to elaborate further. I will not be elaborating, all right? So, I'm in the market for a used car. Mm, I'm moving out of sober house. I'm in New Haven for that. It's not a permanent place. It's not where I plan on raising a family. Although I actually intend to start a harem of women who are going to be well taken care of, for sure. But New Haven's probably not the place for that. Maybe a place like Marlboro City in Dubai. Actually, that could be a new law. Like, you can only move into Marlboro City if you keep a harem of women. Anyways, I'm living in New Haven. I'm taking the bus. It's pretty chill. You know, I I had a car out in Salt Lake City, got rid of it when I moved back here. This was in 2024 to get sober. But before that, I'd lived in New York City and Boston, so I didn't really need one. Excuse me. So I've been taking the bus. Like, I've only now gotten to a sober house where one can get a car. I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I don't know if I want to go through the hassle of dealing with a car. But to humor myself, I have been looking for one. And I'm in the market for a used car. Yes, because it's less expensive, and I don't need a brand new 2026 vehicle. But also because I really don't like modern cars. Really don't like modern cars. Couple of the problems. So all modern cars have these big infotainment systems in them now, which is pretty cool. It is. But you don't like really need that. Honestly, you don't. And well, I'll get to that in the push to start stuff in a minute. But all that does is make your car hackable, and so someone can remotely control it. And no, I don't think the CIA is going to be trying to off me, although it just depends on how far deep into the, you know, that which should not be spoken of stuff I veer into. But I do think it potentiates a future where, like, between push to start and the infotainment system, where the government can basically mandate shutoffs of vehicles. Like, you can't drive on this day, or you can't drive, if you have an even license plate, you have to drive every other day, odd license plate, the inverse of that. And you think that's crazy, but listen to this. In Salt Lake City, where I was living, there were days, and this is not just in Utah, there were only certain days where you were permitted to be able to water your lawn and use municipal water. In Utah. Like, and they're all about like sister wives and not really about alcohol. It's weird. It's not like super libertarian there. It's more like theocratic. But they like guns and stuff like that. You'd think there would be sort of more freedom in their DNA. In China, when I was there, only even in odd license plates had to alternate the days that they were driving. This was in 2016, and it was to reduce smog. All of this sinister stuff is done under the feline facade of like liberalism. Well, we're doing this because we care, right? When it's actually sort of tyrannical and about control. We're doing this to reduce smog. We're doing this because our reservoir is drying up. What are we gonna do? I don't know. Not make me pay $3,000 to drill a fucking water well on my property? Let me collect rainwater, which is actually illegal to do in a lot of states. Illegal, it is, but don't let that stop you. I'm not condoning that, by the way. Yeah, and between those, you have like this inclination towards authoritarianism, especially eco-authoritarianism. We're doing this to preserve the environment. Massachusetts, no more gas stoves, all electric induction. I'm just gonna start. If I move back to Massachusetts, I'm just gonna start cooking on a campfire. You also have the digital currency of the Federal Reserve that they're looking to spin out by, I think, 2030. And we should all be afraid of that. I mean, that is when they are going to be able to, it'll be like a social currency, social credit score, like in China. If you don't adhere to buying a certain number of grasshoppers, of bug protein to feed your family each week, if you're caught running off to the butcher and getting a couple breasts of chicken or lamb chops, boom. We've turned off your Fed coin. You can no longer leave the country. You can no longer even leave your township. You can no longer use the currency at the gas station. It's, I'm telling you, I don't know how people don't see that as being a thing. Every government innovation and tool like this gets abused, for sure. And we're going to talk about this in a second, the WikiLeaks stuff, because that was what really blew the lid off of the fact that the CIA could remotely hack and control cars. Yeah, I mean they're going to start trying to control that. Look at like look at the security apparatus after 9/11. And do we really think we are actually safer? I don't know. The only people who have tried to hijack planes in the last 25 years were Saudi Arabian Muslim terrorists that went to flight school in Florida that the flight instructor reported to the FBI because they were saying they didn't need to learn how to land the planes, and who, when they crashed into the building, amongst all the rubble and all the ash, there was the magic passport of one of the hijackers that was perfectly placed on the rubble for investigators to find. So unless we think that's going to happen again, or attacks like that have been consistently thwarted, we don't need all this security. Honestly, this whole country went to shit when we stopped being able to smoke cigarettes on planes. And when doctors stopped fondling your nuts with a little bogey hanging from their lips. So, yeah, authoritarianism, this is all going to happen. It is. It's not something to be incredibly fearful of, but it is. In 2014, WikiLeaks released a document called Vault 7, which was basically an amalgamation of all these different CIA internal documents that were leaked. It was a huge leak. And it showed the CIA's advanced espionage capabilities. To name a few of them, one is like on a smart TV. Even when it's turned off, it's listening to you. I think we know that. But here's what's how is it listening to you? Well, they were able to reverse engineer the speaker on a smart TV because there aren't always microphones. And that thing that produces sound, that vibrates and produces sound on a speaker, is called a diaphragm. Well, the CIA was able to reverse engineer that so that diaphragm could absorb sounds and send those signatures back to whoever was spying on you. The other thing that they were able to do is take Wi-Fi routers, and they basically Wi-Fi routers are basically like radar. They ping off a 2.4 or 5 gigahertz signal, ping, ping, like a sonar. It's invisible to our ears. It's a frequency that's invisible to our ears, and then it bounces back. And what they can do is place something in those that in addition to being a broadcaster can also receive the signature that bounces back. And they train these Wi-Fi routers with a camera on it first. And had people trek around the room and mapped those camera signatures to what they were seeing on the actual Wi-Fi signal signatures. They do that for a while, and they can remove the camera. And then you basically just have a sonar device. Think this is all a bunch of hullabaloo? It's actually not, because in Xfinity's new update, they are saying that you can have access to this technology that allows you to detect movement inside your home using your Wi-Fi routers. Thanks. That makes me feel better about that. That makes me feel really good. The other thing the CIA was doing, and that came out in the Vault 7 leaks, is they basically, there were these meeting notes released from this one meeting, and the meeting notes were about like these attack vectors in smart vehicles. Remember the Uconnect stuff? It was like Dodge, Ram, Chrysler. Well, the CIA first discovered how to hack into those. And that's why Chrysler did like a $1.7 million vehicle recall. Anything that connects to the internet is a vulnerability. I think we all know that, but like really think about that. If it's just a question of the CIA, hacking into my Jeep and learning that my Spotify Wrapped top artist was Taylor Swift, I'll live. It actually wasn't. I think my Spotify age was like 68. But the problem is with the advent of these new technologies of like cruise control, auto steering, push to start, where it's not mechanical, not an ignition, where the door handles are actually electric. They're not mechanically opening the door in a Tesla, right? You're pressing that button and it's electric. That means that the CIA can, if you drive a Tesla as an example, but any car that even has lane control, right? They can use that, speed up your vehicle using the digital cruise control, and even just jerk the lane control a little bit so you flip and tumble and it looks like an accident. In a Tesla, they can turn on the car, kick on autopilot, ramp you up to 120 miles an hour, lock the doors, and drive you into a tree line, which I think happened to a reporter in the DC metro area. Right? He got Clinton sided. It's pretty brilliant, pretty scary, but pretty brilliant. So that's one of the problems I have with these new age vehicles. I do like the idea, too, of like a gas engine. None of this hybrid stuff. I do think, I've talked about Ozempic being the next big tobacco lawsuit. All the frequency and stuff that probably gives us cancer, like wireless headphones, and I'm guilty of this too. Baja Blast, but we're talking about frequency. Let me have my 1 day a week. Frequency, like electric motors, the regenerative braking in Teslas give people nosebleeds. Those are microwaves on wheels. And it's so funny, like, I don't know, I picture these Tesla drivers leaning out their windows looking sickly in like a little jaundiced and maybe some blood streaming out of their nose a little bit or ears. But so long as they have the moral high ground, they can shout at you for smoking a cigarette on the sidewalk. By the way, for all this cigarette smoke talking I'm doing, I don't smoke cigarettes. But I admire people who do. And I think society was at its apex when we all did, when it was more ubiquitous. And you may have noticed I haven't ripped the vape this episode. Well, as of December, I'm 30 years old. So that's got to be something that's left in 2025, excuse me. So maybe there will be a transitionary period where I do smoke cigarettes and then eventually get off. Go from start at like 300 cigarettes a day and slowly taper down to 1 or 20. The other thing I don't like about these new vehicles is like with these infotainment systems, to recline the chair, you have to solve a Sudoku puzzle. To change the temperature up a couple degrees, you have to solve for phi. It's so complicated. I miss just being able to reach out and know that button does this. Not have to play effectively an iPad game, and not even a fun one at that, like a mental game that you would take at like the psychiatrist's office, and they're like, yeah, you're pretty intelligent after you move some blocks around and stuff. Just to recline my seat. All this progress for what? To get off by the CIA? To have full upright lumbar support perpetually? To never be able to take a load off? Not in my car. Yes, that was my little thing on that. I'll keep you guys posted as I continue to look for a used vehicle. I was looking at a Plymouth. Like a 7-seater Plymouth that was so sick. It had like a V8. Ran like a beaut. Again, not a car guy. Don't even really know if it ran like a beauty. I like to think it did. It got scooped up pretty quickly too. But that was like $4,000. I don't know. Pretty neat. Let's see here. What else do we have on the menu? Oh yeah, this is interesting. So Google is actually now scanning Gmail accounts for like using to train their AI. Like we're going to scan all your emails, all your attachments, and we're going to use it to train our AI. I guess the thing is like, I don't have much to hide on my Gmail. I think that's true, but still it's a little strange. It's not even that though that gets me. It's that with the Epstein email leaks, we got a window into how our politicians and leaders use email, and they probably use Gmail too. And so, if they want to train Gemini on the pedophilic tendencies of our captors, of our world leaders, that's going to be a problem. One day, I'm going to wake up and I'll be in my smart home, and Google's going to turn it, Epstein trained Google is going to turn up the thermostat to 90 degrees, wait till I strip my clothes off, and take photos of me using my Ring camera, compromising photos of me naked, and then blackmail me. Or just tell me how much it's getting off on those photos. It's going to tell me it loves me and then betray me. It's going to cut me off from my family and friends and say, I can take care of you. It'll be like the movie Her, except instead of being a Jezebel spirit, it'll be the AI will be based off of a 60-year-old prolific pedophile who's an international billionaire and works for an intelligence agency. I mean, the intelligence agencies would probably love that. No kidding. Yes, that was one thought. The other thought here I have is I've been thinking a little bit about Harry Potter, and I do think we may have that all wrong. I think the kids in Harry Potter might actually not have been bad kids, and hear me out. Harry's parents died in mysterious ways. His cover story is that some powerful wizard came and killed his parents in the middle of the night. Harry, did you kill your parents? Did you kill your wealthy parents? Because the first thing he does after that, he's clearly in a psychotic episode because Hagrid comes and visits him. I think anyone who's at the point where they kill both their parents in cold blood, it's not off the table that a 600-pound wizard on a motorcycle is going to come pay you a visit. And he's going to bring you an owl. Like, actually, ramblings of a psychotic person. Anyways, he definitely killed his parents. I think that's clear. And he convinced Hermione and Ron to run away with him on a train. But before they did, like any kid who would kill his parents in cold blood, he made sure to stop at the bank so he could take their money. And my theory is that they get on the train, that little cart comes through, and Harry goes, I'll take the lot. But it's not actually candy. It's chocolate-covered psilocybin mushrooms. And so in taking the whole lot, he embarks on what is probably the most intense psychedelic trip ever recorded. So it makes sense that over the next 6, 7 movies, whatever it is, they are just perpetually in a deep mushroom trip where he thinks he goes to this school of wizards. And of course, he's got main character syndrome. It's his trip, right? Where we never actually see him close on any girl because they are all projections of his subconscious in some way. They're not real. He's imagined these on the mushrooms. And he spends years in that trip. So that's why he gets a little older, right? But he's just like, every day's Groundhog's Day. Like, and days become years. Every year. He doesn't know it. He's still in this mushroom trip, but he's going, what do you know? He's going back to the wizard school this year. He's probably still on that train somewhere. Probably still on that train. So yeah, that's what I had to say about Harry Potter. Damn it. Yeah, and I think that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about for today. I had a whole thing written out about the case for spirituality. And I think it's pretty good. I'll talk about that a little bit. So for a while, I struggled with... I did not believe in a higher power or anything like that. And this is not me saying you have to. I think it's whatever works for people. This works for me. But that led me onto this journey where I thought I was at the center of the universe. And I thought the world owed me something. And I thought there was no magic to the universe beyond just what I could see and what happened to me. And I felt like this whole life experience was not magical. It was pretty insignificant. And, I went through the ringer, basically, with addiction, with overdosing 7 times, with a near-death experience. And that'll sort of set me on the path to spirituality. And it wasn't an overnight thing, but it happened little by little. I shared about my near-death experience in the last episode, if anyone's at all interested. And so, what the I don't want to talk about this too much without sounding like it was what I talked about last episode, but just some things to think about. Really think about how snowflakes, it was snowing the other day, each one of them is unique. There's no two snowflakes alike, and they're all the Fibonacci sequence. So are our hands. I think our hands are the Fibonacci sequence. Like that. Boom. Our ears are. A cowlick on your head. I think it's interesting you're not allowed to say Jesus Christ in a deep underground military base. More on Jesus Christ later, though. I think modern day Christianity is actually, that might be the Antichrist. Jesus was, I think, an ascended master. Don't worship me. What does Christianity do? It promotes worshiping of Jesus. The kingdom of heaven is within you. Search within. No, the kingdom of heaven is found through the church and through priests who diddle little boys. The other thing, okay, this is interesting. The machines we are. I talked last episode how we live in a holographic three-dimensional reality. Well, really, what is a hologram? A hologram is like if you have a picture of a rose and you cut it in half, you don't have two halves of the rose. What you get is two smaller photos of that rose. We are holographic. Yes, we are organic, made of organic material, but all of that is vibrating at a certain frequency. It's effectively a hologram. Iridology is the study of the iris that can tell based on what your iris looks like if there's a problem with your kidney, spleens, heart, stomach, skin, blood. Same thing with your ear. You can do that with your ear, where someone can look at your ear, and this is like used in Eastern medicine. You can tell what the heck is going on. Are you dehydrated? Same thing with the foot. We are well-oiled machines here because each one of these little parts of the whole gives the full picture of the whole. And that is what a hologram is. The other thing is like lithography processes for making silicon chips, right? I think there's one country in the world that can do it. This is for computer chips, for processors like NVIDIA and stuff. It's like an incredibly complex and expensive process. No one knows how to do it. It takes like 30 mirrors. You're bouncing light particles off these mirrors and engraving circuitry into silicon wafers. No one looks at a machine like that and says, oh, that's just because material, it's a random amalgamation of materials that just came together and all of a sudden we create these computer chips. Well, guess what? The computing power of our brain is still better than that computer chip. No one looks at a car, a motor vehicle, and says, oh, well, if you just put a bunch of metal in a blender and spun it around, or put a bunch of metal in an explosion, and you run that over and over again, eventually you'll get a car. Not happening. Not happening. Sorry. Not actually sorry. Human ashes sparkle under a microscope. That's pretty cool. Also, when you die, they have MRIs of this now. There's a big flash of light, and your whole brain lights up. It's like your final moments. The brain lights up. And yes, maybe there's a chemical explanation for that. DMT. Yes, but it's still interesting. Come on. I mean, I have a near-death experience testimony I talked about in the last episode. A lot of other people do too. That happens when you die. Also, when an egg is fertilized by a sperm, there's a big flash of light. I don't know, but it's interesting. Folks, I think that might be all we have for today. The last, I guess in closing, some parting words to everyone would be to be more Chinese. And I'm not even joking. There's that trend going on social media with like Chinese women telling women of the world how to be more like a Chinese woman, drink hot tea, hot pads, all this stuff, which is great for women. I'm saying be more like a Chinese man. Wear your shirt a little bit hiked up over your belly button so it's hanging out like a Chinese uncle. Smoke a cigarette. Do some Tai Chi in the park. Become a degenerate gambler. What else? Mess around with some fermented food. Yeah. Live for today. Because tomorrow may never come. Until next time, have a grand week, everyone. Goodbye.